Welcome to another fun-filled edition of Second City Sports Zoom style.
Zoom style.
Along with Lakeena McGee, which is she, I am Cindy Brown, which is me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at CK80. Once again, at CK80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow me at Keena McGee on the Twitter and at Keena_McGee on the IG.
You can follow this podcast, Second City Sports First, right here on YouTube. Videos drop every Monday and Friday. Once again, videos drop every Monday and Friday right here on YouTube at War Media. Once again, at WARR Media. The audio version drops every Tuesday and Saturday at War on Anchor. Once again, every Tuesday and Saturday for the audio version at War on Anchor. That's WARR on Anchor. You can type that in your search engine boxes where podcasts are available. You can go to our website, weareregalradio.com. That's WEAREREGAL radio.com. And you can follow us on all social media platforms. That's Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and right here on YouTube at War Media. Once again, at WARR Media. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
And we have very definite opinions. And we are unapologetically fun. Lakeena, the baseball world is gathered at Denver, Colorado at Coors Field for tonight's All-Star game. None of you care about the All-Star game, so we're not going to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
But we do want to congratulate, one more again, as the kids would say, to our Chicago baseball All-Stars for the Cubs, Chris Bryant and Craig Kimbrell. For the White Sox, Liam Hendricks, Lance Lynn, Carlos Rodon, and late addition, shortstop Tim Anderson. So it's nice to see TA, as the kids will call him. He'll be playing in tonight's All-Star game. You can see that, at least in the United States, living in the United States, on Fox, and I believe it's on MLB TV International for you international viewers.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Lakeena, let's review the first half of the season. We'll start out with the good guys on the South Side, and that's the Chicago White Sox. They post a record of 54-35, 19 games above 500. They are currently on a 5-game winning streak. They take care of the Baltimore Orioles over the weekend. Lakeena, the pitching has not been the greatest, but you have unsung heroes that have been coming through for this team this season. Of course, you talk about the recent rookie call-up in Gavin Sheets, Brian Goodwin, Adam Engel, who returned from injury early last week. He delivered that big 3-run homer in last Sunday's victory at Baltimore. Let me tell you something, looking at right now. I do believe that this is a special season for the White Sox. Will it culminate in a World Series championship? That remains to be seen. But you have to give GM Rick Hahn credit, as we have been doing all season long, for having depth on this roster, especially with the amount of injuries that this club has been dealing with. You have to give Tony La Russa his share due credit as well. We're not going to talk about that silly incident of Minnesota that's way in the past. I'm not going to deal with that. We dealt with that too many times. But the way that this team is playing right now, you have the third best record in baseball, the best record in the AL next to the Houston Astros. We'll get to what they did over the weekend against the Yankees later on in this segment. But if you're a White Sox fan, you should be happy about your team. Enjoy it, because things are going to get more interesting as the trade deadline approaches in the next 2.5 weeks or so. And, of course, in the second half, the schedule gets tougher, but this team is built to handle it. And you should just be satisfied right now. Don't be that meatball fan that everything has to be perfect. We all know during a long season, things are not going to go your way. Things are not going to be perfect. You have ups and downs. And for the way this White Sox team has played, if the award ceremonies would be held today for American League Manager of the Year, Tony La Russa would get it hands down.
I mean, look, I think this is going to be one of those things where you look at, there were so many heroes, both unsung and otherwise, for the White Sox, so far. Tim Anderson, who rightfully got that spot in the All-Star game, he'll be playing tonight. Jose, Abreu, Moncada, they got guys like, Mercedes, he's kind of, taking a couple of steps back since guys have caught up with him. And they've been able to kind of bounce back through, injuries. Most injuries, some teams would have, completely sunk. But the fact that the White Sox have so much depth, you got guys like good. We got guys like, don't forget Jake Berger, Gavin Sheets. I mean, you get all those guys are kind of Andrew Vaughn too. You get so many guys stepping up to kind of pick up the slack with some of the various injuries. Now, Eloy will probably be back, right, maybe in early August. Maybe Robert might be back too by then. That's the early word now. So we'll see, what happens with that. I mean, as far as the pitching goes, I mean, Giolito, is, doing Giolito. I know he hasn't had, his last couple of starts have been not very, very good, but he's been doing just enough to be consistent. Keuchel's doing his thing. Cease's been up and down, but, he kind of been bounced back from, some of the other things that have gone on. Lance Lynn's been a nice pickup for the White Sox. Rodon, of course, had the no hitter earlier this season. He's been staying steady. So, look, I think for me, I think that this is sort of like a team. If you're a White Sox fan, you should be very happy about where you're at right now as a whole. Now, we'll see what Rick Hahn does, as the trade deadline approaches. I mean, do you get another middle relief guy? I mean, White Sox, this might, caught some White Sox fans off guard, but they have had some issues with, their middle relief. Do you get another middle reliever? Do you perhaps maybe get another bullpen guy? I mean, Michael Kopech is back, had a solid start against, the Orioles on Sunday, which is, very solid, which is what you want to see. But again, do you need the extra bullpen arm? I mean, the hitting, I think, will take care of itself as long as no one goes through a linear slump. I think you're in a very good spot there, hitting wise. You got a lot of depth there. You got young guys stepping up. So you're in very good shape in that sense. But again, if you're Rick Hahn, you're in a very interesting spot as you approach the trade deadline.
And speaking of GM Rick Hahn, we talked about this looking for the last few weeks. You're in a perfect spot. I don't want to say perfect spot, but you are in a perfect spot. I'll go ahead and say you're in a perfect spot if you're Rick Hahn, especially dealing with all these injuries and the depth that has shown the players that have replaced these starters. They're shown for the most part that they are able to do the job, but you could use a couple of those pieces potentially to pull off a trade. As we said on this show for the last few weeks, people have been talking about, you need another big bat. You need another big bat. That bat is coming, i.e. Eloy Jimenez, hopefully by the time at the end of this month, at least soon, like you said, a couple of days after the trade deadline, which is July 31st. But this number one issue for this team is middle relief. And I've been saying, I know there was an article in the Chicago Tribune that came out over the weekend and saying that the Craig Kimbrell could be used on the south side. I'm not opposed to that at all. I know Craig Kimbrell's a closer. I know Liam Hendricks, who's going to play in tonight's All-Star game, he's the closer for the Sox. But if somehow you can get Craig Kimbrell, that would be great. But everybody can use Craig Kimbrell from around baseball. So his price tag is already high. How much, if you're Rick Hahn, you're going to give up, I'm not sure. But I brought this guy's name up in our last episode, Andrew Chafin. I don't think he's going to cost too much. He's a left-hander, and he's been doing it. One of the 3 Cub relievers out of that bullpen has been doing the job all year. I know they had a tough stretch here over the last couple of weeks, but that Cubs bullpen has been, most of all, been doing the job all year. I would take a flyer on him. He won't have to cost as much. So if you Rick Hahn, you have some options here. But as we've been saying for the last 2 or 3 weeks, the reason why you don't see big trades happening right up to the All-Star break, because the asking price for these needed veterans, these needed players, are too high. And so now you get into at least the last 2.5 weeks before the trade deadline. Things may start to heat up after the All-Star game tonight. But if you're Rick Hahn, you want to make the best possible deal without mortgaging your whole future. That's what I've been saying all along.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see what the price is going to be for a lot of those guys you mentioned, Sid. And I think, well, again, they may wait till the very last minute, some of these teams, just to see where they are.
That's my prediction.
Yeah, I mean, where you are, especially once you get to the point where you get close to the trade deadline, can you maybe gain ground? I think that's probably why some teams are probably waiting and doing the waiting to see approach. I mean, you just don't know what direction that some of these teams are going to go. So, look, if I think you're the White Sox, you're in the top 5 in RBIs, you're in the top 5 in batting average. You're in the top 5 in a lot of the categories, both in pitching and in hitting. So, despite all the injuries, you're in a pretty good spot right now. So we'll see. I mean, they might look. I mean, Rick Hahn might just stand pat. Who knows? I mean, we don't know what he's going to do. We know he has that sort of like is always laser focused. So we just don't know what he's going to do. So we'll see what he does. I mean, I'm kind of looking forward to see what happens in these next couple of weeks after the All-Star break. What's going to happen to some of these players and some other players that are being mentioned. So again, I don't know what's going to happen, but again, it's going to be an interesting ride.
And also, too, let's not forget Adam Frazier, who's going to play in tonight's All-Star game, representing the Pittsburgh Pirates. He's, according to reports, on the White Sox radar, along with Escobar from Arizona, who's going to represent the Diamondbacks in tonight's All-Star game. He's on the radar as well, according to reports. I know some people thought there was a deal that was in place about a week ago, but nothing has transpired yet. As we said before, the price tag is too high. And so that's why you don't see deals made before July 4th and not before the All-Star break. So like you said, it's going to be interesting to see what Rick Hahn does. As I predicted before, and I'll still predict, it's going to be up until the 11th hour. And you had to make smarter deals that way. I know on teams on the other side that have players that these contending teams want, they can ask for just about whatever they want, but you can't fleece teams, and usually a couple of teams try to do that and they go home empty-handed. So if you're Rick Hahn, you're going to play this smart, and if you say this is the year to go for it, then go for it. You just don't want to mortgage the whole future on a couple of rented players that basically going to be here for the next couple of months. And you just have to be real careful with that.
And they may be gone by the end of the season. That's another thing you got to be careful of. And like I said before, when I said in the last episode, the schedule gets a little tough for the White Sox. I mean, they have 3 hosting Houston right off the bat, then they have 4 against Minnesota. They've been playing a little bit better. Milwaukee, I should say, they go up to Milwaukee for 3. They have KC for 4. They're kind of they kind of had been up and down, the KC is, but they're sort of still kind of within distance of one of the wild cards. Cleveland, you probably put them away. So, and then you got and then after that, you got KC again. You got in early August those Cubs games against the Cubs. So, not a very easy start right out the bat as you get off the All-Star break for the White Sox. So you kind of have to play this very carefully here. And if you're before when we get to the Cubs, I mean, you don't want to if you're a Rick Hahn, you don't want to mortgage the future for guys that will probably be gone by the end of the year. So you have to be careful when it comes to that. So that's another thing you got to watch out for. So we'll see what Rick Hahn does.
I'll give this kindly reminder, and I meant to say this in our last episode. The team that won the division the last few years, the Minnesota Twins, they had all the bats in the world. When it came down to it in the playoffs, they had no pitching, starting pitching in particular. Let me say that again. For all those people that in White Sox Nation that say, we need a big bat, we need a big bat. Go ahead and get your big bat. But the team that has won the division these last few years in the Minnesota Twins, what did they do come playoff time? Those bats went silent, and they started pitching was crap. I just want to remind Sox fans that, the ones that say, we need a big bat, and we can scare these teams. You need players that know how to play playoff baseball. What we say every year, Lakeena, you need timely hitting in October, but it's all about pitching and defense. Here we remind some Sox fans, even the ones that decided to jump on the bandwagon last year and some this year. We studied that 05 team. Yes, that team hit over 200 home runs during the regular season, but when it came down to it in the playoffs, they took advantage of the other team's mistakes. It was about timely hitting, but it was about pitching and defense. Those 2 things that's going to win you games in October and hoist that trophy. I just want to remind some Sox fans about that.
Well, unlike the Twins, you have the pitching. The White Sox have the pitching, so we'll see what they do with it. Look, it's going to be interesting as we get closer and closer to the trade deadline. This is Second City Sports Zoom style, along with Sydney Brown. I'm Lakeena McGee. Let's go to the north side for a second, Sid. I mean, the Cubs, split their series against St. Louis. Unfortunately, they weren't able to play that last game against St. Louis because of the rain. I think they could have squeezed it in, but again, that's just me.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, it wasn't like it was a torrential downpour. It was sort of like start and stop rain. It was more mist, but again,
it was much worse on Saturday. We told you we didn't think they was going to get it in, but they did get it in
somehow.
But it was somehow. But
that'll be part. Yeah, that game will be part of a September 24th doubleheader. They're 44-40 6, Sid. They're 8 games up, where people are already saying they should sell. But then again, Milwaukee, again, a team that I don't trust. And they're proving my point. They lost 3 straight heading into the break. So, but, I'm sure, Kimbrel's names be thrown around, Chapin, you just said, guys like Javi Baez, Chris Bryant, Anthony Rizzo. So what do you think? Okay, what do you think about the Cubs season so far? And, are there going to be sellers?
As I predicted on this show for the last week or so, if the Cubs found themselves in a position of between 8 and 10 games out, I think Jay Hoyer will make up his mind. I'm sure that he's fielding calls right now, and the losing streak couldn't have come at a worse time if you're a Cubs fan. But if you're Jay Hoyer, that you're given orders by the Ricketts family, we all know that they want to cut financial cut to save money. And that's what he has to do. But going back to on the field, Lakeena, this team, I'm not going to say they look lifeless, but it seemed that way, especially on watching some of that game on Saturday. I was watching Yankees and the Astros. We'll get to that series later. But watching some of that game on Saturday, it's just I'm not going to say they quit because they'll be unjust. So I'm not going to go that route. It's just like they were going through the motions, and when stuff like that starts to happen, you really have to question your team. I know manager David Ross has tried everything in the book over these last couple of weeks, but whatever has he's tried, it hasn't worked. Now last Friday's game, they look like the team that, not going to say they're going to win the whole thing and win the division, but they look like a competitive team out there. Saturday is just, yeah, they got guys on, but they couldn't get them across home plate. And we said this all year. They're consistently inconsistent in terms of scoring runs. And what really saved them was their bullpens, we mentioned, especially during the month of May. And you had Kyle Hendricks that started to turn around. He actually won his last start last Friday. But Zach Davies didn't have it on Saturday. No one had it on last Saturday. And so in the back end on the rotation, Albert Alzolay actually looked okay except for his last start. He's actually looked okay ever since coming back from the injured list. But Jake Arrieta looks like he's done in a Cubs uniform. I know technically he's on the IL, but if you DFA him, that's fine by me. But for the Cubs, yeah, it just doesn't look good right now. Even though you still technically have a chance, I know you're going to break down their schedule again coming up in a minute. But I don't know if you caught the comments of Wilson Contreras, their catcher, Wilson Contreras following Saturday's loss, saying that the team doesn't have any energy. I'm just paraphrasing here. The team doesn't have any energy. They need to play a whole lot better. When you start to hear stuff like that, especially spew out in front of everybody to hear, that causes potential problems within the locker room. I'm not saying there's potential problems in the locker room. I'm not there. But it doesn't look good. If Wilson is using that to fire up his team, so be it. But it just doesn't look good. You're really trying to find answers. I don't know if you can find answers in time for July 31st before Joe Hoyer really tries to back up the truck.
Well, yeah, I mean, those comments. I mean, I know Rossi said those comments are completely, out of the ordinary, and out of context. But if you look at what happened on Saturday, now could have been maybe the rain. There was some word that maybe they would postpone Saturday's game. Maybe just mentally they weren't there. Look, it happens. But I think the fact that everything, like you said, injuries, and also too, I think everyone just started, like, everything just started sticking for the Cubs. It seems these last couple of weeks. I mean, after that combined no-hitter against the Dodgers, they were just completely the air just kind of went out the tires with them. And look, it could have happened at a worse time. You had everybody saying, see, we told you, this Cubs team is not a contending team, and this and that. And I think, look, we said it before, that division, that NL Central is not, look, that the Milwaukee's are not world beaters. Let's be honest with that. And look, I think, I'm sure, Hoyer, like you said, I'm sure he's feeling calls for guys like Kimbrel, guys like Chapin. guys probably perhaps maybe Baez. I mean, look, whatever's going on, with the team and with, mentally with the team, I mean, they need to figure it out. But thankfully they have some time to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
And figure it out quick because, a lot of these guys are probably going to be gone by the end of this month. So I think they need to look, they've got, 3 at Arizona. They got 4 against St. Louis, and then they finish up that against Arizona. Then they have 4 against Cincinnati at home. So right before the trade deadline, we'll see what happens there. If they can if they perhaps maybe gain a couple of games during that stretch, I mean, maybe Jed will make some minor moves. If not, I mean, a lot of these guys are going to be gone. And I think, look, as far as the financial stuff, I mean, they could, look, the Ricketts, we talked about this for like the last few months. So they can cry poor all they want. They can say, well, the Marquee Network, okay, it's bringing in money. Okay, fine. And Wrigleyville is, that whole area, I think, is bringing in money now that everything's starting to open up again. But still, I mean, they can't use it as an excuse. Because if not, I'm sure other teams would be using it as an excuse too, so they can't use that. So I just think at this point, I think, look, whatever happens with the Cubs happens. I mean, I don't think if you are going to go full on rebuild, you're not going to be able to sell, those young players to your fan base. Like you're just not going to be able to do that. So if you're going to rebuild, you better hope it doesn't take no more than 2 years to do it, because Cubs fans are very fickle. And yes, y'all are. Some of you are. If they don't figure it out quick. I mean, they could kind of be right back where they started. Maybe I can say in the early 2000s after those teams, didn't, go as far as they would have, but we'll see what happens.
We talked about this before, Lakeena, during last year's shortened season. The Marquee Network was in its first year, and in baseball sense, it would make sense if the Cubs wanted to rebuild, they could do it. But you're now, fast forward now a year later, you're in year 2 of that network. And like you say, if you want to do a full rebuild, it's going to take you longer than 2 years. And do you want to have Cub fans invest into a new channel and watch young players lose 90 to 100 games a year? They cannot do that. You could try to be like the Boston Red Sox and rebuild on the fly. It's worked for them, but will it work for you for the Cubs? I'm not so sure. But as of right now, I don't get the sense that Jed Hoyer wants to back up the truck fully, even if he wanted to, because like we said when we talked about the White Sox a few moments ago, many of these teams are going to wait till the last minute to make deals. If you're Jed Hoyer, if you want to trade Chris Bryant or Craig Kimbrell, who could probably bring the most back for you, you have to wait till the last minute because you have the prize that other contending teams want, and you don't have to make a deal right now. That's why I said they don't have to make a deal right now. You can wait, especially if things continue to go downward. You have all the leverage because you have the players that these contending teams want, and you can ask for wherever you want to ask for. Right now, I don't think they'll give great value right now. But I don't think he'll. Talking about Jed Hoyer, I don't think he'll back the truck up fully. I think Craig Kimbrell, if I can make a prediction, I think Craig Kimbrell, if things continue to go downward, I think Craig Kimbrell will be gone and maybe somebody else. But Baez and Chris Bryant, I don't think so. I'm sure he's going to take calls. I'm sure if not already about those two guys, but I don't think it's going to be a complete fire sale as many people expect or want it to be.
Yeah, and I think that's, like you said, so I think that's going to be the thing, right? I mean, the fact that I know people want to be, hey, let's go full on, but look, do you really think you're going to go over there and you're going to go to a Cubs team that features, some players that you never heard of that been in the minors? You're not. And look, right off the bat, if you look at some of these schedules, I mean, the Brewers, they get Cincy right off the bat after the All-Star break. Then they have a mini 2-gamer against KC, and then they host the White Sox next weekend. Y'all can help them out a little bit too. And in that sense, I mean, Pittsburgh, Atlanta, we'll get to them in a second because unfortunately they lost one of their top guys. So I think if you're Jed Hoyer, I think of course you're gonna field calls. He learned from Theo, so he knows how to kind of like maneuver things. You'll take calls. You'll see, okay, you want Kimbrel, you want maybe Javier Baez or something like that. But again, you're waiting to see if you somehow gain maybe 3 or 4 games within the next week. Again, like I said, that division is very fickle. that division is winnable. Whether people want to admit it or not, they say, "Oh, well, they're not good enough." Well, the division's not good enough either. Sorry, folks. No one's gonna. People thought that people thought that the Cardinals were gonna run away with the division. They haven't. They're going through the motions too. So let's be a little honest here, kids.
You're listening to Second City Sports along with Lakeena McGee. I am Sydney Brown. Let's wrap up this segment, Lakeena, with reviewing the first half of the year with the rest of Major League Baseball. Let's start out in the NL Central. The Milwaukee Brewers have a 53-39 record, 4 games above the Cincinnati Reds, 8 up on the Cubs and Cardinals, and 18 up on the Pittsburgh Pirates. I did watch some of the game on Saturday with the Brewers and the Cincinnati Reds. Cincinnati's on a hot streak right now. Do I think they're going to make a move at the deadline? Probably not. And Milwaukee's good. They're on a hot streak too, but they've been more of the consistent team in that division. As we said before the season started, whoever's going to grab this division is going to be one of the luckiest teams in baseball, because these teams are almost evenly matched, and they're not as strong or feared as people thought. Now, I still have St. Louis winning that division. I picked them to win it. Will they win it this year? I'm not so sure. They have the same record as the Cubs, but if you look the way they played last Saturday at Wrigley, you would think that they were not going to say one away with the division, but they'll make a run. Maybe they'll still make a run, but right now it doesn't seem likely. Milwaukee, as we've been saying all year, Brandon Woodruff, who's an all-star, I believe, he's been one of the best pitchers in the National League. Their offense is a little bit more consistent than the Cubs. It's not that much better, but they've been consistently consistent, just a little bit more than the Cubs. So they capture a hot streak with their schedule, and that's the reason why they're in first place. Do I expect that to continue? Maybe, but I don't think you should give them the division just yet.
Well, no, like I said before, that's why all the more reason that the Cubs should try to hang on as much as they can. Like I said, they were just up 3 games about 2-3 weeks ago. So I think people need to kind of just, wake up and see that this division is very winnable. So I think that people just need to kind of just, chill for a second and not, hey, let's go trade everybody. No, because the division's still right there. I mean, no one's saying that whoever wins the NL Central is going to end up winning the World Series. Nobody's saying that. But, again, especially maybe Pittsburgh, all 4 of those teams, the remaining teams, can win that division, whether people want to admit it or not. So let's give it a little time here, and we'll see what happens. Look, I think all 4 of them have tough schedules in the second half, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, let's go over to the NL East. The New York Mets lead that division by 3.5 games over Philadelphia. The Atlanta Braves by 4 games, the Washington Nationals by 6, of course, the Miami Marlins by 9 games. Of course, Lakeena mentioned this a moment ago. The Florida Marlins took care of the Braves last weekend down there in South Beach. Ronald Acuna Jr., their all-star right fielder, had a torn ACL in last Saturday's loss. I saw it, Lakeena, on replay. It looked ugly. Hopefully that young man, he will be back, but not this season. Hopefully he'll be back stronger and healthy and more determined for the start of the 2022 season. We mentioned the struggles for the Atlanta Braves. They've been struggling all year trying to get to at least 500. I know they were 1 game away from the World Series in the bubble last year, but this year has not worked out for them. And things, unfortunately, went from bad to worse.
Yeah, just look at like we've been saying about Atlanta. They just can't catch a break. I mean, you lose one of your top guys, and one of your most popular players on the team to a torn ACL. He's going to be done. He's done for the year, and they unfortunately they lost their series against the Marlins. So unfortunately for them, they did not end on a high note. The Nationals lost 4 in a row. So they you thought that maybe they were starting to get it together, but then it turns out they haven't, and they get swept by the Giants, and I just unfortunately I think maybe we'll see what happens with them. I mean, the Mets. I mean, look, like I said before, I don't trust the Mets. I've said it multiple times, so I don't know. Look, I think anybody can win the division at this point. I mean, the Phillies, they've been kind of up and down, but they've sort of stayed afloat. They're only 3.5 back, so. I don't know. Look, they won 2 out of 3 against the Red Sox, in their last series before the break. So I don't know. I mean, we'll see. I mean, I think this is one of those divisions where we'll see who makes what moves will be made I don't know. We'll see. I mean, look, I think you can put all four of these teams' names in a hat and you pick one out, and then you say, oh well, this team can win that division. So the AL East is there for the taking. So we'll see what kind of moves that will be made during the trade. Who's going to make what moves during the trade deadline? Because I'm sure there are a lot of players available, but a lot more teams need them. So we'll see what happens in there.
Before I lose my lunch, let's go over to the NL West. The San Francisco Giants post the best record in that division with the 57-32 mark. 2 games up on the defending world champion Los Angeles Dodgers. 6 up on the San Diego Padres. Colorado and Arizona need not apply. As we said before, Lakeena, I don't think the San Francisco Giants are going anywhere. Will they win that division? I don't think so, but I think they'll grab one of those wild card spots. It'll be interesting to see what Giants management does. What will they do at the trade deadline? Will they pick up another starting pitcher? Will they pick up another bat? We shall see. But the Dodgers, Trevor Bauer, we talked about that situation in our last episode. I don't know if he's going to pitch again for this upcoming season. He's currently on administrative leave again due to the alleged sexual allegations. So we'll leave that part alone. But as far as on the field, they took care of the Diamondbacks right before the All-Star break. And so the Dodgers won't go anywhere. Will GM Andrew Freeman look for another starter? I know David Price, they don't want to throw him. He's in the bullpen. I don't know if they want to throw him in the starting rotation, given his age. But will Andrew Freeman look for another starter? We don't know. San Diego, will they pull off a surprise move? We don't know either, but I think that team is on the rise. I did pick them to win the division before the season. I still will stick to that, but the San Francisco Giants will be the team will throw a micro wrench in all this.
Well, unfortunately for the Padres, they lost 2 out of 3 to the Rockies going into the All-Star break. So I think that's probably not the way they want to finish, their first half of the season. But but again, look, they're 6 back. I mean, I don't think no one thought that the Giants would be in first place right now in that division. But again, we'll see if they run out of gas. I mean, I know that they've won 4 in a row. We'll see if the Giants do anything. A lot of people thought that maybe the Giants would, have a fire sale themselves, with a little bit of some veteran players, but also some young guys. And again, we'll see if they can keep up now. The Dodgers, Freeman's in a tough spot now with, what's happening to Bauer. So we'll see what moves he make. I'm sure they probably don't want to put Price back out there because it's actually been a pretty solid in the bullpen. So I don't think they're going to want to try to stretch him out, especially like you said, with his age. So we'll see what he does. I'm sure they're going to want another starter. But again, I think that NL West division is probably a lot more competitive than people thought it would be. So, pretty much in part thanks to the Giants, but should be interesting.
Let's to wrap up this segment on baseball, Lakeena, let's go over to the American League divisions. We already talked about the AL Central earlier. Let's go over to the AL East. The Boston Red Sox posted 55-36 mark. They're a game and a half up on the Tampa Bay Rays, the defending American League champs. They're up by 8 games over Toronto, 8 up on the Yankees. Baltimore need not apply. The Boston Red Sox, I told you, Lakeena, I'm not impressed with their starting pitching. It's been good enough because their offense is good, especially by all-star third baseman Rafael Devers. He's good. You still have J.D. Martinez. You still have Johnny Verdugo over there. So their offense is really what's been carrying their Red Sox team. Now, Toronto, they don't have the starting pitching. I told you I have them winning the wild card coming out of the American League. I like their offense, but their starting pitching is not that good. I know you still have Marcus Stroman over there, but you still need more than him. The Yankees will discuss their series against the Astros in just a moment, but this might be the year that you may have to sell off a couple of pieces. For the life of me, I just can't figure out what's going on with that team. I know they have Corey Kluber, their starter, who pitched a no-hitter at Texas early in the season. Looks like he's going to be out until September now. I know Aaron Judge, who had that big home run on Saturday night, but can you trust him to stay healthy for the entire year? Giancarlo Stanton, he's one of the best power hitters in the game, but he's always has health issues. So for the Yankees, I just don't have any faith in them right now. I just don't.
Well, let's talk about the Red Sox for a second. Again, to me, there's kind of the same, in the same situation as the Giants. I don't think anybody thought that they'd be right there leading their division. going into the All-Star break, they're 1.5 up. I mean, look, the Rays, they're hanging on. I know they've had some injury issues, but
Mm-hmm.
we'll see what they can do with them. And yeah, I mean, I'm like, Toronto. I know that Vlad leads in multiple categories.
Mm-hmm.
I think I think he's either like in the top 5 or leads the league in like multiple categories. I think only he up with Ohtani in home runs,
Mm-hmm.
but like he leads in like RBIs and batting average too. So, well, like I said, it'll be interesting to see what he does. I mean, but like you said, Sid, I mean, unfortunately for Toronto, they don't have the pitching right now, so that's the thing that's going to
Mm-hmm.
keep them from. I think they still have like you said, they still have an outside shot going into the wild card, getting one of the wild card spots. So I'm thinking that that's probably going to be the saving grace for them. New York, I just don't know. I mean, injuries and everything. I mean, we'll get to what happened with that Astros series. I just think, I just can't believe what happened in that Astros series. But again, we'll get to it in a minute. But I think that AL East. I think it's the Red Sox. But again, we'll see how far they can hang on. The Rays, and I would probably say maybe if Toronto could kind of make some moves with their pitching, like they could be kind of like right there too. It might be a big leap for them, but we'll see. But I think that they can. I think they can do it.
Yeah, if you're Tampa Bay, especially with Tyler Glass now
Yep.
out for the year,
Yep,
and he
that's
got
gonna
injured
be
here
an
in
issue.
Chicago last month. Will they have enough to acquire a starting pitcher?
Do they have enough though? I mean, that's going to be the thing.
Let's wrap this up by going over to the AL West. The Houston Astros have a 55-36 record, 3.5 games up on the Oakland A's, 7 up on the Seattle Mariners. The Los Angeles Angels by 9 games. The Texas Rangers need not apply. The Houston Astros, Lakeena, we referenced this a couple of times already. They took care of the Yankees right before the break, winning 2 out of 3. They had a huge comeback on last Sunday. Of course, Garrett Cole, former Astros pitcher, congratulations to him. He pitched a hell of a game last Saturday. I watched the majority of that game. He wanted that game against his former team.
He wanted that.
Especially that last pitch, throwing at 99 miles an hour to strike out Alvarez. That was awesome. So congratulations to him on that. But the Astros, we talked about it before, Lakeena. I don't know. They're playing great right now. I know they're led by Dusty Baker. He's in the second year of managing that ball club. They do have the offensive talent. Their starting pitching, I know, is better than I thought it would be. Do I trust them? I don't know. But as we talked about it early in this segment with the White Sox, if you want to go to the World Series, you got to beat teams like the Astros. I still believe Oakland's going to be heard from before the season's over. It's not a charade that they're 3.5 games back. It's not just, we're just here just because they're a good ball club folks. So look out for Oakland. Houston, they're right there, but they're not as scary as they were a few years ago when they won it all. So I give Houston their props, but I'm not scared of them. I know what they did to the White Sox a couple weeks ago by sweeping them in 4 games down there, but I'm not ready to crown them AL champs yet. That's just not me.
Well, I think Houston, I think you feel like they're on a mission. It seems like I think they want to. It's sort of like them against the world. I think they know that the cheating, all that other stuff. I think they want to kind of feel like, okay, you know what? You think we're a bunch of cheaters, but we're going to beat y'all. And you saw what happened in that last game on Sunday against the Yankees. I mean, I think the Yankees were up, I think, like 5 runs, and now this is the second time the Yankees have blown a lead. They led by more than 4 runs. Just a couple weeks ago against the Angels, they're MLB teams are 493-2 when leading by 4+ runs entering the 9th inning in this season. Both those losses have been against both those losses, were responsible for by the Yankees. Altuve hit that walk-off, and you saw his reaction. They ripped his shirt because I think Judge mocked him in that Friday game where he kind of like mocked him. And then like, okay, you know what? Look, here's the thing.
Where's the mic?
And then I'll do a walk-off and I'll rip off my whole shirt. I mean, well, that whole sequence was just crazy. But on a serious note, though, I mean, like I guess their pitching is a little suspect, for the Astros. But like Brantley's been doing his thing, consistently bad, hitting wise, and of course you got Altuve, and the gang. So I think Houston's one of those teams where I think you feel like you can kind of like get to that point where, okay, you know what, this is us against the world. We're gonna try and win another one, and we'll see what happens. And look, I don't think we've seen less of Oakland either. I think Oakland will have something to say about that division. They're only 3.5 back, so I think they'll have something to say about that. I think because I think they're gonna be playing against each other a lot in the second half. So I think that definitely we'll definitely see whether or not who will win that division ultimately. But I think it's definitely between those two, I should say, and I think that's going to be sort of the thing that's going to really going to see who's going to win that division. I think that's going to be a very exciting finish in that.
Take a look at the standings for the American League wild card. Tampa Bay is up 2 over Oakland, 3.5 over Seattle, 4.5 over Toronto. In Cleveland, the Yankees are 4.5 back as well. Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim with Shohei Ohtani there, 5.5 up on them. In the National League wild card race, the Dodgers are 4 up on the Padres, 3.5 up on the Reds, 6.5 over the Phillies. The Chicago Cubs are 7.5 back along with the St. Louis Cardinals. So, Lakeena, we're at the All-Star break. Like we mentioned before, the July 31st trade deadline should be and will be interesting to see what these contending teams do. Those teams that I mentioned in the wild card race, will they be in the same position 2.5 weeks from now? We shall see. So things are starting to get interesting, and things will take shape once the second half of the season starts later this week. Segment number 1 of Second City Sports is in the books. When we return, you'll have more sports and more fun. We'll review Game 3 of the NBA Finals between the Phoenix Suns and Milwaukee Bucks. We'll give you our keys to Game 4. Lakeena will have our Wimbledon update as that tournament is now over, and we have a sports media story that you should be interested in. All that and a whole lot more. Along with Lakeena McGee, I'm Sydney Brown. You're listening to Second City Sports. Welcome back to the second half of Second City Sports Zoom Style.
Zoom Style.
Along with Lakeena McGee, I am Cindy Brown. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at CK80. Once again, that's CK80. That's SIDKID80. SIDKID80.
You can follow me at Keena McGee on the Twitter and at Keena_McGee on the IG.
All right, let's continue with more sports and more fun on this program. Let's start off with reviewing Game 3 of the NBA Finals, as we talk about basketball, of course, between the Milwaukee Bucks and the Phoenix Suns. The Milwaukee Bucks are back at home at Fiserv Arena. They got a big win last Sunday night by the score of 120-100. Giannis Antetokounmpo has become the second player to score 40 points or more in back-to-back NBA Finals games since Shaquille O'Neal. Giannis had 41 points. Jay Crowder led Phoenix with 16. The numbers that jumped out to me, Lakeena, was the three-point shooting for Phoenix. They were 9 of 31 for 29%. Milwaukee shot 38% from beyond the arc. There was a big free throw discrepancy. Not that much, but a little too many people started complaining. Phoenix was only 11-16 from the free throw line. Milwaukee's 20 for 26 for 76%. The rebounding edge went to Milwaukee with the plus 11 advantage. Lakeena, I know Devin Booker had 10 points off of 3 of 14 shooting. I knew that this game was going to be trouble for Phoenix when Devin Booker struggled from the perimeter early. A couple of things that I took away from the Game 3 win for Milwaukee. Giannis was involved early, especially in the paint, which opened things up for Brook Lopez and opened things up for Chris Middleton. Drew Holiday actually played well, but it was all about Phoenix's lack of perimeter shooting. Shots just didn't go down. Milwaukee actually established inside presence. They actually passed the ball very well as far as the assist department is concerned. Actually, they had a plus 7 edge on the assist to turnover ratio. Milwaukee had 28 assists, Phoenix had 21. But total turnovers, Milwaukee only had 9, Phoenix had 15. That was the other story that I took away from the Game 3 win for Milwaukee last Sunday night. They played defense. They took advantage of Phoenix's lack of perimeter shooting. They established an inside game. They came away with the 20-point win.
Yeah, I think, look, Well, yeah, I think once Booker missed all those 3 point, especially those 3 point shots early, you kind of thought,
Hmm.
okay, maybe this is a little bit of a wrap here. And look, the free throw discrepancies. I mean, you can do the whole like, oh well, they were at home and blah blah
Hmm.
blah. But I know I like the fact that Monty Williams kind of didn't make excuses for it without making it about that. But again,
Hmm.
he doesn't want to get fined, so that's another thing. But yeah, I mean, look, I think, look, they established Giannis early in the perimeter, like you said, Sid. I mean, Brooke
Hmm.
Lopez able to get some, key shots in the paint. That's sort of like the one thing you can say about the Suns, they could probably say that the paint protection. I think that's always been an issue for them. But I
Hmm.
mean, look, I think that they were the Suns were 9 for 31 for 3 pointer. 3 pointers just were not
Hmm.
hitting for them, and the Milwaukee was able to take advantage of that. And look, I think that this is gonna be one of those. Look, everyone has a bad game unless you sweep. Yeah, I never thought it was gonna be a sweep. I think people were saying that it was gonna be, but look, this Brewers, Brewers, but the Bucks team's too talented. Yeah, that was a potential there. Yeah, I was looking at Christian Yelich. Yeah, they had Christian Yelich on the screen there on my computer screen there for a second. That's why I was thinking about the Brewers. But the Bucks, I think were the Bucks is too good of a team. I think they were able to kind of take advantage of it. They had a little bit of home cooking, so it's fine.
Hmm.
Now, but again, if you're the Suns in Game 3 tomorrow, you don't want to kind of like get them back in the series. If you're the Suns, you try to hit
Hmm.
those 3 pointers early on. Get Aiden, establish Aiden on the inside. Maybe perhaps get Bridges involved because he struggled, in Game 3. If you
Hmm.
want to like make it to a point where you want to go for the knockout punch now, Cam Johnson had 14 off the bench. Including a massive double over Chris Middleton. That was held all over the place. It's gonna be screenshots of it all over. It's gonna be on
Oh,
posters.
he's done with PJ Tucker. Yeah, did
PJ
you see
Tucker, yeah,
PJ Tucker's reaction? Both his eyes lit up because he
he's
thought he was going to get the offensive foul call, and it
yeah,
didn't
yeah. He
happen
thought,
that way.
yeah, it did have. Well, yeah,
You've been
yeah. I
posterized.
was like, yeah, Middleton was like right beside him, but I think he kind of had a
Hmm.
reaction to. Everybody had a reaction to that. Both benches, it
Yep.
was just crazy the reaction, but because it was a great deck by him. But yeah, they
Hmm.
try to kind of like establish him more off the bench. I know Campaign had his struggles too. Only 7 off the bench. I think there needs to be some more of a bench presence with them with the Suns. So you don't want to give the Bucks any confidence to get back in the series. You don't. So if you're the Suns, you try to establish, get that 3 pointer going. You didn't have it. Look, it happens. But
Hmm.
just try to kind of establish a tempo early on. Unfortunately, once the Suns weren't hitting their threes and the Bucks were able to establish their style and their tempo, and they kind of like got a big lead by the second quarter and never looked back.
Yeah, speaking of inside presence, as I mentioned just a couple moments ago, Milwaukee had a 14-point edge in terms of points inside the paint. Milwaukee had 54, Phoenix had 40. And going back to the flip side for a moment for Phoenix, I know that DeAndre Ayton, take a look at his stat sheet. Oh, he scored 18 points. He grabbed 9 rebounds. He grabbed 4 rebounds. Sorry, 9 rebounds. I was right. Yeah, 9 rebounds. But he was in foul trouble early. He couldn't handle Giannis down low. And I know that he only played 24 minutes, but you could tell early, too, that besides Devin Booker missing his shots from the outside, DeAndre Ayton, he just couldn't handle Giannis. No one could have handled Giannis last Sunday night. So for Phoenix, just staying out of foul trouble, you forced the tempo because Milwaukee forced the tempo in the Game 3, especially grabbing long rebounds and sharing the ball. At one point, I saw a stat. I don't know if you caught this, Lakeena, on a broadcast. When Chris Middleton, Giannis, and Drew Holiday, the Milwaukee Bucks had 110 points at the time. 105 of those 110 points, all 3 of those guys had an assist on those on 105 points out of those 110 points. That's when you share the ball, you move the ball around, it gives your teammates open shots, and that's what happened with Milwaukee last Sunday. I didn't see Phoenix forcing the tempo; they were forcing up bad shots, and it just didn't go. Chris Paul, I know he had a so-so game, but Phoenix didn't play their game. Like you mentioned, shots weren't falling. They did force the tempo. Early foul trouble, especially in the paint, that's what did them, man. Going back to Chris Paul, I know he had 9 assists go along with 19 points on 34 minutes of action, but you have to have more than Chris Paul to carry you through review the Phoenix Suns. I'm not going to sit here and say they're in trouble. They're not. It depends on what happens in Game 4 tomorrow night. But it was a bad game. Milwaukee established their presence early. They established tempo, which carried them for that blowout win in Game 3. But Phoenix, I believe, is still in control of this series. Milwaukee, as you mentioned, they had the home cooking. That crowd was electric on Sunday night. They did what they had to do. Let's just see if Milwaukee can bring the tempo again for Game 4 tomorrow night.
Yeah, I mean, Giannis had a 40-point double in back-to-back games to join LeBron and Shaq as the only two players to do it in the NBA Finals. But I think, like you said, Sid, I think that Ayton needs to sort of try to kind of maneuver over. Move or Giannis. I mean, that's going to be the thing. I know that's a tough task, but that's something he has to do. I mean, he had 18 points, like you said foul trouble kind of did him in, for a lot of the Suns, I think, if you think about it. But so it's just, everybody, even some of the all-time greats have had bad games. So for people to kind of say that, oh, well, hey, we want to see more basketball and such. Okay, but again, you don't want to. I guess those are the better team. I think they just need to start playing like it. Look, they had a bad game yesterday. Look, that's why they call it a best of 7. It happens. You're gonna have clunkers like this sometimes. You're the Suns. So just spur the tape. You'll get out your minds. Try to kind of not force the threes, and then maybe you can kind of take back control of the series.
And I believe, too, that this extra day is going to help the Phoenix Suns as well. I know some people are asking, why are they not playing tonight instead of tomorrow? Because the baseball all-star game is being held tonight. And so the NBA will give baseball its due date. And so they'll pick up the action again tomorrow. You're listening to Second City Sports along with Lakeena McGee. I am Sydney Brown as we review Game 3 of the NBA Finals between the Milwaukee Bucks and the Phoenix Suns. The Suns are up in the best of 7 series, 2-1. Game 4 is tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time on ESPN. For those of you watching internationally, but also it's going to be on ABC here in the States. Lakeena, what are your before I ask you your keys to Game 4? Let's take a look at the Milwaukee Bucks box score for Game 3 one more time. Jrue Holiday, as I mentioned, he was a plus 22. He added 21 points to go along with the 9 rebounds and 9 assists rather, and 5 rebounds. Chris Middleton had 18 points, but just looking at that game in its entirety, it seemed like that Middleton had a bigger impact. He didn't score as many points, but he had a bigger impact because shots were falling. And Pat Connaughton, once again, he only had 8 points off the bench in 30 minutes of action, but he was, I believe, Milwaukee's best player in Game 2. Game 3, it didn't show on the box score, but Pat Connaughton brought that energy once again off the bench for Milwaukee.
Yeah, he's sort of like the Energizer Bunny, I would say. I've always called him that. But yeah, look, he had 8 points. He made some key defensive stops. I mean, look, Bobby Portis, there's a name that we haven't heard in a while. So, had 11 points off the bench. Had some, made a couple of, got some key rebounds and such. So that kind of, helped them out a little bit in that. And so Jeff Teague, had a couple of steals. So look, I think that they got some nice, quality play from the bench. And I think that's the thing that was missing those first couple of games in the finals. Look, can they be consistent? That's another story. But again, at least for Game 3, I guess the bench were the stars in the game.
Indeed, they were. Now let's turn our attention to our keys to Game 4 for tomorrow night's contest between the Bucks and the Suns. Lakeena, I'll ask you from the Phoenix side of things. What do they need to do to get control of the series to go up 3-1?
Hit your threes. That's basically what you have to do. You have to hit your threes. I think, like we said, they only hit 9. They were only 9 for 31 in Game 3. So I think if you're the Suns, don't try to force those 3-pointers. Let it happen naturally, like you did in the first 2 games. I think like you said, so I think that having that extra day will help them. I think that's going to really help kind of get their minds right and get their bodies right. I think they might have been a little bit tired from the time difference and such. That might play a factor as well. So I think that definitely will help them. Like if you can establish the tempo early on, make those threes, get the Bucks off their skis. I think that's going to be the thing too. And I think if you're get Bridges involved, get Ayton involved, get your guys off the bench involved too. And I think that get that balanced scoring. I think you can, and I think they can do that. So if they can do that, they can take take control back of this series. I really feel they can.
I know there's been heat that's been put on Devin Booker for the last 24 to 48 hours. I know, as we mentioned before, he had 10 points on 3 of 14 shooting. He's going to play much better. He has to be aggressive, and like we mentioned before, even though he's been hitting those perimeter shots, especially from three throughout these playoffs, he has to be more aggressive, take the ball to the basket. And if he does say it's going to open up the perimeter game for him and for his teammates as well. So, win or lose tomorrow night, I expect Devin Booker to play much better.
Yeah, I think so too. Now, as for the Bucks, I mean, I think you can try. Look, I think Giannis, does what he needs to do, but I think you also need help. Holiday had 21 in Game 3, I think, but he needs to, do more. He had a couple of big 3-pointers, but again, he can do more. I think, Brook Lopez tried to be more of a force on the outside and force Ayton out of position. And, Middleton, look, he had 18, and look, I think that's, look, I think you can do more too. I think that, look, I think it's going to depend on which outside of the stars. I think it's going to depend on who's like supporting cast will do more and can do more. I think that's going to be the key in Game 4. If the Suns do it, I think they can take back control. Perhaps when they get back to Phoenix, by this weekend they'll probably be celebrating. If you're the Bucks, if the Bucks win, they can go back and make the best of 3.
I agree with you with the point on the points for both teams from Milwaukee. I like to see Chris Middleton score a little bit more. I know he had 18 on Sunday, but if you could get him over 22 points, I think he'll be okay. Drew Holiday, he's the key. Can he do it again in Game 4? We talked about in our last episode, Lakeena, that Drew Holiday, outside that one block on Devin Booker, I believe late in Game 2, he was a no-show. But in Game 3, he stepped up with 21 points and 9 assists, as I mentioned a few moments ago. I want to see if he could do that again. And like you said, Lakeena, who's going to step up off that Milwaukee bench? Can Bobby Portis bring that energy once again? It'll surprise to me that he had 11 points. Pat Connaughton, how much more does he have left in the tank off that bench from Milwaukee? As we started to see here, Lakeena, I think we talked about this too in our last episode when we had Ricky O'Donnell and Big Dave Watson. The depth from Milwaukee is not as good as people think it is. Phoenix has the better talent, the better depth. That's why I had them winning this series in 5 games, sub 5 games. And so if Giannis can get that consistent help once again, I expect this series to be 2-2. I did pick Phoenix in 5, and so I will stick to that, which means that I'm picking Phoenix to win tomorrow night. But I wouldn't be surprised if Milwaukee wins it tomorrow night if they get that same effort again as they did last Sunday.
Like I said, that's going to be the interesting. That's going to be the real $1 million question, right? I mean, which teams are going to show up tomorrow night? So we'll see what happens. Should be a fun one.
Yes, it should be. You're listening to Second City Sports along with Lakeena McGee. I am Sydney Browns. We have a few minutes left with you guys for today's show. Lakeena, there was a tennis tournament that took place over the weekend that wrapped up called Wimbledon. Unfortunately, yours truly could not find the time to watch it. Both the men's and women's finals took place. Who won those final matches?
Well, I'll start on the men. You got Novak Djokovic. It's his 6th Wimbledon title.
Again?
It's his. Well, he's won 3 of these. Remember, they didn't have a tournament last year because of COVID.
Year,
so, right. But he came in and look. This is once again another Grand Slam where he had to earn his way. He lost the first set against Matteo Berrettini of Italy, who I think has the game to kind of he'll win a cup. He'll win his share of Grand Slam matches. He's only 22, so he'll win his share of matches of Grand Slam finals. But, look, Djokovic came back, won the last 3, 6-4, 6-4, 6-3. And, that's his 20th Grand Slam. And now he joins both Roger Federer and Rafa Nadal for all 3 of them have won, at least 20 Grand Slam titles. I mean, look, I think it's just amazing. He's also the first guy since Rod Laver way back in 1969 to hold all 3, the first 3 Grand Slams, Aussie Open, the French Open, and now Wimbledon. If you look at his comments, you feel like he had to earn all those last 2, especially he kind of had to earn those because he was down. He's down 2 sets in the French Open. Now he was down 1 set here, and just the fact that we're in this era where we saw Federer, Nadal, and now Djokovic all winning at least 20. We'll see if they can pass that. You got the U.S. Open in a couple of weeks. Djokovic said he's going to take a few weeks off before you're getting ready for the Olympics and whatnot, and you get the U.S. Open only about a month after that. So he's going to play. I'm sure he's going to play a hard court tournament. I think it's a hard court. I think they're doing it in Tokyo. I'm not sure, but I think just an amazing accomplishment what he's been able to do, and the fact that this era where if you're Pete Sampras, you're thinking to yourself, oh well, 14, no one's gonna pass me, and well, Federer does it, and then a few years later, Nadal does it. Now Djokovic does it. Now they all three of them have 20. So just an amazing feat, and just this great era of tennis. The fact that he's still doing this, he's 34, Djokovic. I mean, so he is still playing at a high level. So I wouldn't be surprised if he breaks the record, with the U.S. Open. We'll see, but.
As I asked this question before on the show, Lakeena, I'll ask it again. When are we going to have an American dominating on the men's side, especially? We haven't had it, like, as you mentioned, Pete Sampras, Andre Agassi, and that's when we were teenagers.
Yeah.
Not to age ourselves on the show, but.
I don't, like I said, I don't know. I mean, I think Tiafoe made all the way to the four. I think he made it to the third round. There've been a couple of other guys too. So, but Jack Sock and I think Donald Young. I mean, look, I think it's unfortunate that we just don't have the players are there for the Americans, but I just think that you've got guys like the three guys I mentioned. Plus, you got Thiem, you got Berrettini now from Italy, and a few other guys too. So it's going to be hard for the American men because I just think that it's just. I don't know. I wish I had an answer for that. If you ask for tennis, like you ask Patrick McEnroe, John McEnroe, and then those guys, they probably won't be able to tell you either. So I don't know.
What about on the female side?
I'm glad you asked. Ashley Barty from Australia. She's the first Aussie woman to win Wimbledon in 50 years. You got to go all the way back to 1971, said Yvonne Goolagong. We're not that old, folks, I promise you, but we're not
Speak for yourself.
Okay, I'm not going to. It's her second Grand Slam. She has an Aussie Open. She won an Aussie Open a few years back, and she has some injury problems. She's number one still, but she's been consistently coming back. Of course, with COVID, everything was thrown off, but she's been able to, come back and win. And she said this was actually the tournament that was most important to her because she won the junior tournaments, years ago. So, look, she's got the game. I think. Look, I think she definitely has the game. She got the mindset. She'll definitely win more. Look, she's only 25, so. Again, I think she's definitely got the mindset in the game to do it. So, look, I think Ashley Barty is sort of one of those players where I think, people know who she is. We're starting to see her more now winning tournaments. So, she's back at it now that she's fully healthy. So, I'm happy for her. I mean, I think hopefully, Karolina Pliskova, this is her second Grand Slam final. She's lost again. She lost, I believe she lost the Aussie Open to Naomi Osaka early this year. They might have been last year, but I think she'll get her a chance to win a couple of Grand Slams. But yeah, Barty, I think, is one of those players that she'll definitely be number one for a while. Now, Coco Gauff, she made it all the way to the quarters. Look, she's only 17, so I think people need to kind of give her a break on there. Now, maybe in a couple of years, if it still doesn't win a Grand Slam, then you probably say, okay, wish you're gonna do it. But she's got a little bit of time. She's only 17, folks. Give her a break.
She had I thought this was going to be a rivalry from the U.S. Open from a few years ago. What happened to Madison Keys?
Injuries, and I think she made it to the quarter. She made it to the round of 16, but unfortunately she lost. So injuries have kind of been a problem for her. So hopefully she can kind of get it together too. The U.S. Open, I think, is a perfect opportunity for her to do that. So she's I think she's also going to be on the Olympic too. I believe with Coco Gauff. So.
Okay.
We'll see if the two of them kind of get at it. But I think she's only like 19 or 20, so I think she's got some time too. But yeah, I think people are starting to ask questions about her as well. Probably her more, so she's in her early 20s, I believe. I think she's like 22, 21 or 22. So yeah, so I think hopefully, especially since it looks like Serena Williams might be on her last legs herself. So.
Yeah. But we've been saying that about her for the last few years. She pops up winning a major here and there. So Serena's not giving up that crown just yet. But like you said, Father Time is undefeated. So we'll see what happens with Serena.
So again, congrats to Barty and to Novak. Both deserving champions, and we'll see if Novak can win all four and hold all four. But it's going to be an interesting feat. But we'll see if he can do it.
All right, let's wrap up today's show with this last story from the sports media world. It looks like Sinclair broadcasted Lakeena. They, as a couple of years ago, they bought up the Fox Sports regional networks. Is now repackaged and renamed Bally Sports. It looks like they may go after the NBC Sports regional networks. This comes from our good friends at the New York Post. Sinclair Broadcasting Group, already the nation's dominant owner of regional sports networks, has made an offer to acquire NBC Universal 7 regional sports networks, including NBC Sports Chicago. If Sinclair succeeds by buying the regional sports networks, it will add dozens of popular National Basketball Association, the NBA, and Major League Baseball teams to its already vast collection of sports broadcaster rights, including the Chicago Bulls, Boston Celtics, Philadelphia 76ers, Washington Capitals, Golden State Warriors, and San Francisco Giants. A deal will also give Sinclair an 8% stake in New York's in Sportsnet New York, which brought SNY, which is Sportsnet New York, which broadcasts New York Mets games. So it said. The preliminary offer for an amount that could not be immediately released was made part of June 28th deadline for its first round of bids, two sources familiar with the talks told the Post. That means the offer could easily come to a naught because Sinclair has not yet been privy to all of its financial details around the NBC RSNs, which will only be provided to bidders that make it through the auction's next round. Comcast declined to comment. Sinclair did not return calls for comment. As first reported by the Wall Street Journal back in May, Comcast-owned NBC Universal has been exploring a sale of its RSNs, which we talked about on the show before, as it struggles to figure out what the next steps for a business segment that's been slowly dismantled by cord cutting. RSNs relies on cable and satellite TV customers who have been in decline thanks to the growth of streaming video. The pandemic worsened the problem because of consumers found themselves being billed extra to watch sports despite a banned live sporting events. Sinclair is making its offer despite significant pressure on its own regional sports network businesses, which gives the rights to broadcast the games of 14 Major League Baseball teams, 16 NBA teams, and 12 National Hockey League teams, which including the St. Louis Cardinals and the Dallas Mavericks. When Sinclair announced its deal to buy the 21 regional sports networks from Fox for reportedly $9.6 billion back in 2019. Investors sent back the stock soaring 35%, but the cable operator, which has been rebranded Bally Sports, has been forced to write down $4.2 billion on the investment as cable operators refuse to pay what they once did to air the sporting events. That's just part of the article from the New York Post from 2 weeks ago. Lakeena, as we talked about this before, change especially in this industry comes to a head every so often. You know, we not to get off topic a little bit, but we've seen anchors being cut due to financial costs at ESPN. As we talked about before, these Fox Sports regional networks that were bought up by Sinclair, now known as Bally Sports. I wouldn't be shocked if this move happens again because it looks like Sinclair is going to have a monopoly on these regional sports networks. It gets them to those bigger markets, as we mentioned, like New York, Chicago, in a couple of those big-time cities out on the West Coast. As I said before, there's multiple ways to view live sports, whether it's streaming, and it's not just by regular television anymore. It's by streaming, whether it's via your computer, by your phone, and by other ways. So the way I take what I take from this story is Sinclair is trying to put a monopoly, like ESPN is trying to put a monopoly on sports broadcasting. I know Fox is still out there. You have the three major networks with CBS, ABC, and NBC, especially when it comes to football. But it looks like Sinclair is trying to pull an ESPN with a monopoly of these regional sports networks. That's what I take out of it. But as we said before, nothing's official yet. They're in preliminary talks. We'll see what happens down the road.
Yeah, I think this is sort of one of those things where I think Bally, they're trying to, like you said, they're trying to get into the sports. Look, Sinclair's been trying to get into the sports business for a long time, and going head to head with Bally, kind of letting them take the lead on that, and sort of like getting that with the stench from that. So we'll see what happens if they can. I mean, they already have some stuff out west. They already have Los Angeles, in under their belt, and a few other regions, in that in that area, so they already have that. Now they want to come for the New York and Chicago and those places. So and DC, among others. So this is sort of like a thing. This could be a thing in the future where you're going to be seeing a lot of monopolies. I mean, I guess it's better than them going to, I guess, the streaming. Since of course we talked about that about a month ago, Sid, that they were trying to, they may put some of the Comcast numbers, they may put them on streaming services, or they put them all on Peacock. You don't want that. So I think that this might be. We'll see. We'll see what direction they go. I think this is going to be like a thing where we're going to be seeing this down the line, where I think it's going to be a lot of. Excuse me. There's going to be a lot of folks that are going to be battling for some of these regional networks, especially sports networks, especially because of the fact that Fox doesn't want them anymore. Comcast is looking to get rid of them, so they are looking for a new home. And again, what's going to happen to some of the people who work behind the scenes and in front of the camera? I mean, Barty got rid of Darren Sutton, who's been working for doing play for the Angels for I think like almost a decade. So they got rid of him. So it's gonna be interesting to see what happens if they do go that route and go with Bali. I mean, will that be sort of a thing where like it's gonna be a lot of gonna be a lot of change in faces? So are they gonna go younger or whatever? So it's a lot to take in. And again, like I said, it's everything's still preliminary, but it'll be interesting what route they take, because I think that I'm sure Apple. I heard like Apple is interested in getting some of these regional sports networks. So it's like I said.
I was just going to bring that real quick before we get up out of here. I was going to bring that up. I read the article from our good friends at Awful Announcer. They're trying to see if they can purchase NFL Sunday Ticket. Of course, as you know, right now, the NFL Sunday Ticket is exclusively on DirecTV, but Apple's in talks of trying to purchase that as well. So we'll see what happens.
That's gonna be the $1 million question, right? So it's gonna be very interesting what they do with that. So, but yeah, it's gonna be very interesting. Now, real quick before we wrap up here, Sid, give a shout out to Italy for winning their fourth, I believe, Euro Cup. And a great final between them and England. And for the people that were threatening some of those 3 stars from England, that's not cool. Sending them racial, tweets and stuff. They didn't face.
I heard that story. That was just stupid.
Yeah, Marcus Rashford's mural just outside Manchester, because he plays for Manchester United. It's not cool. I mean, look, there were other factors that went into that. England probably should have won that match before we even got to PKs. I mean, that's another thing. But look, Italy was the better team. So England was playing with house money. So the fact that they were able to kind of force it to eat to PKs, I think that's. That should be, look, you got to give him credit for that. And I think, Garrett Southgate should be getting some of the blame here for bringing on some of those 3 young guys to, instead of not having Jordan Henderson or Raheem Sterling, guys who have been there, guys who are veteran guys to take those PKs. But look, Italy earned it. This is their first title since '68, Euro Cup title. So it was a great final. And the fact that it's being marred by just a bunch of dumb people, English soccer fans and the media. It's just leave the guys alone. Leave England alone. They have everything to be proud of. They can go up from here. So I'll just leave England alone. I'm just gonna say that.
All right. On that note, that closes down another great chapter in this episode of Second City Sports. You can find yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow me at Kimmy McGee on the Twitter and at Kimmy_McGee on the IG.
You can follow this podcast, Second City Sports, first right here on YouTube at War Media. Once again, at WARR Media. Videos drop every Monday and Friday. Once again, videos drop every Monday and Friday right here on YouTube at War Media. You can find the audio version of this podcast. It drops every Tuesday and Saturday at War on Anchor. Once again, every Tuesday and Saturday at War on Anchor. We're available on all podcast platforms, including the iHeartRadio app. Make sure you type in those search engine boxes, WARR on Anchor. You can follow us on all social media platforms. There's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and right here on YouTube at War Media. Once again, at WARR Media. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Thank you very much for your continued support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
Yes. For Lakeena, I am Sid. You've been listening to Second City Sports. We'll have another episode for you coming up this weekend for the weekend edition of Second City Sports. Baseball will get back into full swing. The NBA Finals will continue. Will the series be tied at 2 games apiece? And we'll have a grab hold on this series. And we'll get into this in our next episode, Lakeena, but USA basketball did not do so well. We'll see what happens in their next exhibition game. For Lakeena, I'm Sid. You've been listening to Second City Sports. Until next time, holla!
Stay safe, everybody.